Margaret Thompson had been walking the same 3.1-mile loop around Riverside Park for 15 years. At 73, she prided herself on keeping the same brisk pace she'd maintained since retiring. But lately, something felt different. Her knees hurt more than usual, her balance felt shakier on uneven paths, and by the end of the day, she felt more exhausted than energized. "I don't understand," she confided to her neighbor Helen over Tuesday coffee. "I'm doing everything right, walking every day, pushing myself to go faster and farther. Shouldn't I be getting stronger?" Helen nodded knowingly. She had felt the same frustration until her physical therapist explained something that surprised her. More isn't always better, especially after 70. Margaret's confusion reflects a common misconception among active older adults. Like many Americans over 60, she believed that if walking is good for your health, then walking more and with greater intensity must be even better. That thinking, rooted in decades of no pain, no gain fitness culture, can actually work against the needs of the aging body. The truth is that walking, while still one of the best exercises for older adults, requires a fundamentally different approach once we reach our 70s. The same cardiovascular system that could handle daily intense walks at 50 starts operating like the engine of an old car. Still reliable, but needing more careful maintenance and different kinds of fuel. Research from the National Institute on Aging reveals that adults over 70 who walk more than 10,000 steps daily without adequate recovery time show elevated markers of muscle breakdown rather than muscle building. Think of it like tending a garden. While young plants can handle daily watering, mature plants need a more nuanced care schedule to thrive. Dr. Sarah Chen, a geriatric exercise physiologist at Stanford Medical Center, explains it this way. After 70, our muscle fibers are like vintage fabric, still beautiful and functional, but requiring gentler handling to maintain their integrity. The aggressive approach that worked at 50 can actually accelerate the very wear we're trying to prevent. This doesn't mean older adults should walk less, quite the opposite. It means walking smarter. The key is understanding 5 critical adjustments that can transform walking from a potentially harmful habit into a powerful tool for maintaining strength, balance, and independence well into your 80s. Margaret's daily routine contained 4 of the most common walking mistakes that plague active older adults. These well-intentioned habits were working against her goals instead of supporting them. Her second mistake was ignoring the recovery formula. While younger bodies can repair daily microscopic muscle damage overnight, senior muscles need what researchers call active recovery days, periods of gentler movement that promote healing instead of adding new stress. Margaret was essentially asking her muscles to rebuild a house while she kept knocking down the walls. The third mistake involved her surface choices. Margaret loved the challenge of the park's uneven trails, believing they provided a better workout. While varied terrain does offer benefits, her daily exposure to unstable surfaces without proper preparation was like asking someone to perform surgery with trembling hands. The risk often outweighed the reward. Her fourth mistake was perhaps the most common. She walked alone, in silence, focusing intensely on speed and distance instead of form and body awareness. This turned her peaceful morning routine into a high-risk performance where she couldn't hear her body's subtle warnings or notice changes in her gait that might signal problems ahead. But it was what Margaret did after her walks that revealed the fifth and most crucial mistake, one Helen had discovered almost by accident, and that would completely change how Margaret thought about exercise recovery. What Helen learned from her physical therapist about post-walk routines would surprise Margaret, and it had nothing to do with stretching or cooling down. Helen had spent years doing exactly what Margaret did. She finished her morning walk, took a quick shower, and went on with her day. It seemed logical. After all, she had exercised, hit her health goal, and could now check off another victory in her planner. It was only when she began to feel increasing stiffness in her hips that she sought professional help. The physical therapist, Dr. I. Martinez, asked a question that left her perplexed. "Helen, what do you do in the first 30 minutes after you walk?" "Nothing much," she replied. "I shower, have coffee, sometimes sit down to read the newspaper." Dr. Martinez shook his head gently. There's the problem. You're treating your body like a car that can simply be turned off after use. Helen learned that after 70, muscles function like homemade bread dough. They need time and gentle movement to set properly after exercise. When we stop abruptly after walking, it's like putting the dough straight into the refrigerator. It hardens and loses flexibility. Helen's secret became a simple but revolutionary routine. After each walk, she devoted 15 minutes to what she called a smooth transition. 10 minutes of walking at a very slow pace, as if she were strolling through a museum admiring works of art, followed by 5 minutes seated in a chair making gentle circular movements with her ankles, wrists, and neck. "It's like letting the car engine idle before turning it off," she explained to Margaret a week after implementing the new routine. "My hips stopped complaining, and I wake up feeling less rusty." The science behind Helen's discovery is fascinating. Researchers at the University of Michigan found that adults over 65 who transition gradually after exercise show 40% less muscle inflammation compared to those who stop abruptly. Dr. James Peterson, a specialist in geriatric sports medicine, compares the process to cooling a hot pan. If you put a hot pan straight into cold water, it can crack. The same principle applies to our mature muscles. But Helen would soon discover there was a second, even more crucial element to her recovery, something related to what she did 3 hours after the walk, when she was usually watching her favorite soap operas. Margaret would be shocked to learn that the most important moment for preserving the benefits of walking didn't happen during the exercise, but in the living room armchair. 3 hours after her morning walk, Helen used to settle into her favorite armchair to watch The Price is Right. It was her sacred moment of relaxation, when she could finally rest her legs and enjoy a cup of hot tea. But Dr. Martinez had planted a seed of curiosity in her mind. "Helen, our muscles have a special recovery window that opens exactly between 2 and 4 hours after exercise. It's like having a second chance to amplify everything you worked for in the morning." Helen discovered that this period, which scientists call the late anabolic window, is when the bodies of people over 70 decide whether to rebuild muscle stronger or simply repair the basic damage. The difference between the two scenarios? Gentle movement and protein. Think of your muscle as a construction site, Dr. Martinez explained. If you provide the right building materials at the exact moment when the workers are most productive, you build a more solid structure. Helen's routine changed drastically. During her favorite TV shows, she now did what she called armchair exercises. Gentle leg movements, shoulder rotations, and foot flexions, always synchronized with the commercials. It seemed silly at first, but the results were surprising. After 2 weeks, Helen noticed she could climb stairs without holding the handrail. After a month, her morning walks felt easier, as if her legs had woken up from a deep sleep. The scientific secret behind Helen's discovery is based on research from Harvard University on muscle protein synthesis in older adults. Dr. Robert Chen found that adults over 65 who perform light movements 2 to 4 hours after moderate exercise increase muscle building by up to 60% compared to those who remain completely sedentary. "It's like watering a plant right after you've planted it," Dr. Chen explains. "If you wait until the next day, the seed may not have taken full advantage of its growth potential." Helen also added a strategic snack during this period: a handful of nuts with an apple or Greek yogurt with berries. Nothing elaborate, but rich in high-quality protein her muscles craved at that critical moment. Margaret was intrigued by Helen's visible improvements, but she had no idea there was a third secret, even more fundamental, something related to the days when Helen chose not to walk. What Helen did on her rest days contradicted everything Margaret thought she knew about muscle recovery. You've probably experienced this. After an intense week of walking, you decide to give your body a break. You spend all of Sunday on the couch, watching TV, convinced you're doing your muscles a favor. But have you noticed how you feel on Monday? Stiffer, slower, as if you'd rusted overnight? Margaret certainly knew that feeling. Her rest days were sacred. No exercise, just total relaxation. After all, if walking was work for the body, rest should be the reward, right? Helen thought exactly the same until she discovered something that completely changed her perspective. Dr. Martinez asked her an intriguing question. Helen, would you leave your car sitting in the garage for an entire week without even taking it around the block? Of course not, she answered without hesitation. The car needs to run so it doesn't develop problems. Exactly. So why do we treat our bodies differently? Have you ever wondered why some 80-year-olds move with the grace of someone in their 60s, while others at 65 seem locked up with every movement? The difference often lies in what they do on the days they call rest. Helen discovered the concept of active recovery. And no, that doesn't mean going for another intense walk. It means treating the body like a river instead of a lake. Rivers that flow constantly stay clean and full of life. Stagnant lakes, on the other hand, can become stale. On her new rest days, Helen adopted what she called maintenance movement. 15 minutes of gentle activities like gardening, sweeping the porch, or even dancing to a few old songs while she prepared dinner. Movements that barely felt like exercise, but kept her body on. Have you ever tried staying completely still for an entire morning? Notice how even your thoughts seem slower. Now imagine what happens to muscles and joints after hours of total immobility. The science behind this discovery is fascinating. Researchers at the Mayo Clinic found that adults over 70 who maintain light movement on rest days preserve 25% more joint flexibility and show better muscle blood flow compared to those who adopt complete rest. Dr. Maria Santos, a specialist in preventive geriatric medicine, explains, "It's like the difference between letting water run through an old faucet versus shutting it off completely. Gentle movement keeps the pipes clear." Helen began to see surprising results. Her Mondays were no longer a fight against stiffness. She woke up feeling more agile, as if her body had been gently lubricated over the weekend. But it was when Helen discovered the most subtle and dangerous mistake Margaret was making, something related to the terrain where she walked, that everything finally clicked. Margaret would never have imagined that her proud choice of the most challenging route was secretly sabotaging years of progress. Do you remember when you were a child and deliberately chose the hardest route home from school? Jumping over puddles, balancing on walls, taking on every obstacle as if it were an adventure? That same mentality stays with many of us after 70, and it may be costing more than we realize. Margaret felt a genuine pride when she told her friends how she always chose the park's most uneven trails. "Flat surfaces are for lazy people," she used to say. "I need a real challenge for my muscles." Sound familiar? Many of us carry this belief that harder means more beneficial. But Helen discovered something that would forever change how we think about walking surfaces. During an appointment, Dr. Martinez asked, "Helen, would you drive your car on a pothole-ridden road every day when you have a well-paved route available?" "Of course not," she replied, confused. "That would be terrible for the tires and suspension. So why do we do that to our knees and ankles? Have you noticed how you feel after walking on uneven terrain for several days in a row? Pay attention to the difference, that subtle sensation of instability that lingers even when you're at home in your familiar kitchen. Helen learned the concept of smart terrain progression. Instead of tackling challenging trails every day, she adopted what she called the 80-20 rule. 80% of her walks on predictable, smooth surfaces, 20% on varied terrain to keep the challenge. "It's like learning piano," Dr. Martinez explained. "You don't play complex music every day. You practice basic scales most of the time and occasionally challenge yourself with harder pieces. Have you ever tried to pay attention to how many micro-corrections of balance your body makes during a walk on an uneven trail? It's hundreds per minute. For a body, it's training for a young body. For mature muscles and joints, it can be unnecessary overload." Helen's change was revealing. On her easy terrain days, she walked on well-paved sidewalks or park tracks. On her controlled challenge days, just twice a week, she explored natural trails, but for shorter distances and with more attention to technique. The results were impressive. After 6 weeks, Helen not only felt more stable, but also more confident. Her strength didn't decrease. In fact, it improved, because her muscles could focus on getting stronger instead of constantly defending against instability. Margaret finally decided to try Helen's approach. She began alternating 2 days on smooth surfaces for every day on uneven terrain. In 3 weeks, something surprising happened. When she returned to the challenging trails, they felt easier than before. It's like building a solid foundation before adding the architectural details, Margaret reflected during her weekly coffee with Helen. My body now has the fundamental strength to handle the challenges instead of just fighting to stay upright. The secret Helen and Margaret discovered transformed not only their walks, but their entire relationship with movement after 70, working with the body, not against it, respecting its recovery needs, choosing intelligent challenges instead of unnecessary obstacles. And you? Are you ready to transform your walk from a daily battle into a lasting partnership with your body? Leave a comment sharing how your walks have been and how you evaluate the way your body feels afterward. Don't forget to like and share the video and subscribe to our channel for more health and longevity tips after 60.